Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new League of Legends video. So it is that time once again to go over the best champions currently of patch 7.6. There are definitely some old champions that we always talk about, but there's also going to be a handful of new champions that are also very strong in the current patch and meta. So as usual, if you guys end up enjoying this video, then let me know by hitting that like button. Now this video is going to be made in collaboration with Pro Guides, a very familiar name of a website that tries to overall improve your League of Legends knowledge and gameplay. I have a link to their website down in the description below that I recommend you check out, especially considering they have a free trial, so you literally have nothing to lose. Definitely make sure to check it out down below. But without much further ado, let's get right into the OP champions of patch 7.6. So here I want to start off by talking actually about an ADC, Lucian. The reason for this is because, well, there's always been that whole meme of ADC in 2017 lol and ADCs just overall being a fairly weak role, but ever since the changes to Blade of the Ruined King, ADCs like especially Lucian have risen to the top and are now considered to be very strong. I mean, I've seen so many games where a Lucian pops off, goes to Blade of the Ruined King Black Cleaver build, and he is just not only very strong but very mobile because of the CDR and his E. Does an insane amount of damage, whether it's to squishies or to tanks. Just all in all, overall, a very solid champion. So I truly believe that ADC mains can definitely start to rejoice. Now next to Lucian there is Ezreal, who I also just very quickly want to mention because beside Lucian, Ezreal is also extremely strong this patch. So if you're an ADC main, Lucian or Ezreal should be your go-tos. But with all that being said, let's quickly take a look at Lucian's build. So you want to go a pretty typical ADC rune page, and then you want to go for the Fervor of Battle without question. For items, this is where the build makes Lucian what he is. Blade of the Ruined King Rush with Zerker Boots and the Black Cleaver are your core three without question. These are just the items that make Lucian very strong. Following this, you can get things like Rapid Fire Cannon, maybe even a Static Shiv, Infinity Edge, Last Whisper, maybe a Bloodthirster, and things like that. But let's stay down in the bot lane for just a little bit more, because the next champion I want to talk about that's also a new face for this patch is going to be support Lulu. Now for the most part she is being played as a support champion, but you can easily play her either mid lane or top lane. But this champion has arguably become one of the best champions in the patch by far, and the reason for that is quite simple. She just simply fits the meta. Because let's be honest, for the past couple of patches, what are the most kind of obnoxious sort of champions that have been running around and carrying games? Well, you have champions like Kha'Zix, you have champions like Rengar, Katarina, you have Zed, you have Talon. You have a lot of these very aggressive, bursty type champions just being very strong, especially because of the lethality buffs and whatnot. So Lulu came out of nowhere and became popular because she essentially counters these champions. She polymorphs them, she slows them down, she uses her ultimate to counter the burst, and a whole bunch of things. She essentially became the answer to the meta, and that is why she is very popular. So Lulu, if you're a support player, you might want to pick her up because I promise you she is very highly contested. But let's take a quick look at her overall build. So Windspeaker's Blessing is the keystone that you want to go. For runes, you want to go a fairly aggressive page because her laning phase is actually not too bad at all with her Q and passive harass, ability power, physical damage runes, armor, HP, and all that good stuff. And in terms of what items you want to get, well, you want to go a fairly standard support page. Ardent Censer, Redemption of course without question, Locket of the Iron Solari is great, Mikhail's is a great option as well, Lucidity Boost just for the CDR because you'll need it, but for the most part it should be somewhat self-explanatory. But now let's move over to the jungle, the infamous jungle, the role that has the most champions that I personally think are just most OP or ban-worthy, because this role has way too much impact even now up until this day. Whenever I play solo queue, I always look at the two jungler stats on my team and enemy team and compare because I just feel like the jungle has too much presence. But the first champion I want to talk about is going to be Graves without any surprise. Graves is up there still to be one of the best, if not the best jungler because of just his overall kit and how he plays out. He still has a fantastic wave clear, he's got great ganks because he's essentially a ranged champion, he's got a lot of burst, he's very tanky, he has assassination power, he's got range with his ultimate, he has a whole bunch of things. He even has CC with his W. So the biggest issue with Graves is that he doesn't really lack enough within his kit, and especially with the items you want to build. He fits almost everything that you want from a jungler. So Graves is definitely a jungle champion you want to pick up if you have not yet. Now for the build you want to do on Graves, well, it's as follows. Thunderlords is your keystone of choice. For items you want to go the Red Smite, either Zerker Boots or Armor Boots, maybe even Merc Boots, again just kind of depends on what you're facing. And then you want to follow it up with Black Cleaver, Phantom Dancer, maybe a Sterax, maybe a Maw of Malmortius, maybe something like a Guardian's Angel. It really just depends on the team comp that you're facing. But other than that, I think everything else here should be very simple and self-explanatory as well. But moving along to the next OP champion of patch 7.6, we're still staying in the jungle and we're talking about Shaco. Just like Graves, Shaco is easily way up there on the tier list of just extremely strong junglers. This guy can hard carry games by himself without question, has huge pressure, his Q ability when it's maxed rank gives him quite a bit of a duration when it comes to being stealth, and this guy can just scale really well. He can go a full AD build, he can go this annoying Trinity Force tanky kind of build, and he will do well. He will be useful, and he's very hard to deal with. Just the amount of things and the amount of pressure he can dish out in solo queue is really unmatched, and that's what makes Shaco extremely good at the very moment. So if you're looking for a fun hard carry jungle champion that's kind of an assassin, Shaco without question is your champion to play. But let's take a very quick look at Shaco's build. So you definitely want to go for Thunderlords, but you might be looking at the items and kind of wondering what the hell's going on there. Well, it seems like the new thing to do on Shaco, or the popular thing at the very moment, is in fact not to finish your jungle item. You leave it at the machete and you don't do anything else with that. You want to rush straight for the Tiamat and then start working towards the Titanic Hydra with the Triforce, finishing your boots of course somewhere in between, and then go for tanky, offensive-ish kind of items like Mob Mortius, Steric's Gauge, Deadman's Plate, or maybe even a Guardian's Angel. I promise you this build is not even fair. This build is legitimately just overpowered. It makes Shaco way too strong of a champion. He does a lot of damage still, and he's impossibly difficult to kill. But following Shaco, we have Ivor, another jungle champion that's also definitely up there on the tier list in terms of the best, most OP jungle champions as of right now. The main reason why Ivor is so popular is because not only does he provide insanely useful utility for his very strong AD carry champions like maybe Lucian or even sometimes Twitch or maybe even Ashe, but he provides a lot of CC and utility, and Daisy is pretty much arguably almost another champion. On top of this, his jungle clear is extremely unpredictable, especially against a good Ivor. He can easily counter jungle as well, because you literally can't match his clear speed when it comes to using your passive and then instantly smiting. And he's just overall a very tricky and annoying champion. He's much more difficult to kill than he should be. He has a completely just ridiculous mechanic where he can make bushes, and you just don't know what to expect when facing Ivor. He's just simply too unpredictable. So with all that being said, and this guy and his godly teamfight presence, let's take a quick look at the build. So Windspeaker's Blessing is your keystone of choice. For your runes, you want to go at some attack speed from the reds and movement speed from the quints, because this helps you get around the map, and this also helps you just do your thing whenever you use your passive to auto attack enemy champions, because the attack speed will help you just still do consistent damage overall throughout the game, since you're not really there for the damage because you're not really building a whole lot of actual flat AP, but you still want to actually be a threat, so that's where the attack speed comes in. And for items, it's about the same you've always been doing on Ivor: Athene's Redemption, Locket of the Iron Solari, Ardent Sense, or maybe even a Knight's Vow. Again, all very simple stuff, but it all just works and makes Ivor this annoying, supporty utility type champion that has essentially another champion within his ultimate that can also dish out a fairly good amount of damage. Now the last champion I want to talk about from the jungle is going to be Rengar. Rengar is still a very scary champion. He hasn't really been nerfed all that hard, other than some of the indirect lethality nerfs. But even with that being said, Rengar is still a scary champion. This guy can also hard carry games. He's got some pretty decent scaling potential as well with his Bone Tooth necklace, to the point where you can build him pretty tanky as well and still do a lot of damage and still one-shot squishies. To me, I still think the biggest issue with Rengar, even though they nerfed this a few patches ago, is the fact that he can stay inside of his ultimate invisible for just way too long. It just makes things really difficult to play against. He's still more or less the same champion he has been for several patches, just slightly weaker, but not enough to make him a bad champion. He's still definitely up there for junglers. So with that being said, here's the build that you want to run when playing Rengar. Thunderlords for the added burst, because you're still essentially a burst assassin type champion. For items, you want to go the red smite with either armor boots, maybe even merc boots, black cleaver for the CDR and the damage, and then things like Deadman's Plate, maybe a last whisper at the end, Guardian's Angel. Essentially items that'll give you damage and tankiness or defensive stats at the same time. But let's move away from the jungle and quickly go into the mid lane and talk about Ahri. Now Ahri is easily up there on the mid lane champion tier list at the moment because, well, she is just way too well rounded. A lot of other champions have simply fallen off, while Ahri has consistently stayed at the top. You guys have seen me bust out the Ahri in my Journey to Mastery videos pretty often as well, because again, she's got the wave clear, she's got the true damage, she's got the poke, the catch potential, she's got utility. And get this, for this patch at the moment, even being at a 20% play rate, which is actually the highest of any mid lane, laner, she's still sitting at just under 54% win rate. Again, she doesn't necessarily excel at anything, but the fact that she's great at almost everything is what makes Ahri just one of the best, if not the best champion in the mid lane at the very moment. I really don't think there's a whole lot more to say other than that, so let's get right into the overall build. So Thunderlords being your keystone of choice, your rune page being a fairly standard AP rune page as well, but for your items you want to do the following. Now personally, I actually really like Protobelt on her. That's just my personal thing, and I've seen a lot of other Ahri players do it, but I know for instance Bjergsen likes to go straight for the Morellos and not even get Protobelt. Regardless, I also really like Lichbane on her as well with the Rabadon's Void Staff Zhonya's, where you can easily switch up her builds by completely skipping Protobelt and going Morellos, maybe Luden's Echo, Lichbane, Void Staff Zhonya's and things like that, or you can go something like a Protobelt with a Morellos, with a Luden's Echo, with a Void Staff, and then maybe something like a Lichbane, Rabadon's, or Zhonya's. But the final champion I want to talk about is one that can go either mid lane or top lane, Vladimir. Much like Lulu, Vladimir has also risen to the top again because of the meta. He's just simply an answer to the champions that are currently strong. Facing Zed in the mid lane, Vladimir full armor isn't really that bad of an answer, especially if the Zed player isn't super comfortable on the champion. Vladimir just has a lot of sustain, he can build very tanky as well, so he's hard to assassinate, and if he ever is in a bad situation, then he can just simply use his W and avoid almost everything. He also has insanely good sustain, and his ultimate complements his team extremely well as well. Vladimir, essentially like Lulu, being just the answer to the current meta. So with that being said, let's quickly take a look at the build. Storm Raider Surge is the keystone of choice because you want the extra movement speed on Vladimir to be where you want to be and when you want to be. The rune should be somewhat self-explanatory for Vladimir as well, but for items, this is where things sort of differ based on what you're facing and what you prefer. If there's someone that deals AP damage that you have to respect, then obviously the Abyssal Scepter is great. If they have a lot of AP damage, Abyssal Scepter, still a good item. If you feel like you can disrespect the AP damage or they don't have enough of it or any at all, then completely skip this item and just get everything else. Now very quickly I want to touch on some honorable mentions, the first of which being Talon. Talon is arguably one of the best assassins in the mid lane at the very moment because he's got the wave clear and he can easily roam probably faster than any other mid lane champion in the game other than maybe Twisted Fate. He has a lot of damage in his skid, he's got a very super strong early level 2 cheese as well with Ignite, and Talon is just Talon, he's just simply too strong. Following this I also have Kha'Zix in the jungle. Now I didn't put him in the top list because, well, I feel like he's slowly falling out, but he's still definitely up there. He's just simply much more of a higher risk champion. And the jungle champions like the ones I mentioned are just simply safer and will consistently be better. But either way guys, that is about it for this video. There you have it, the most OP champions of patch 7.6. The ones that will definitely carry your solo queue games and will hopefully make you rise in elo. So if you guys end up enjoying this video, let me know by hitting that like button. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't. Check out my other videos as well. But I hope to see you for the next one. Peace.